knowledge, it is a way to achieve immortality, the Dalai Lama once said. And rightly so, as only by sharing thoughts and ideas we can discover new things together. Hi there, we are Amit and Daniëlle, founders of heygroentje.nl. Through heygroentje, our mission is to introduce people to the amazing vegan Indian cuisine and to discuss topics we find interesting with a wider audience. In this episode of the heygroentje podcast, we are going to discuss why it's time to move on from animal-based milk. The questions that our conversations will revolve around is: do all humans drink milk around the world? What are the health consequences of drinking milk? What are the environmental consequences of producing animal-based milk? We'll talk about the ethics of obtaining milk from animals. And we'll talk about how to actually move on from animal-based milk and talk about some alternatives. So with that, I'd like to welcome Daniëlle. Welcome on our another podcast.
Yeah.
So what are your feelings about this topic?
A bit mixed, because the whole industry around milk is really sad, and we will also tell a bit more about that, I think, today. But also quite positive, because we see things are changing. There's so many more milk alternatives at the moment. So it's a bit sad and positive at the same time. Just for our listeners, I think we have had conversations around meat for quite a long time. Like when we transitioned together to a vegan diet, like that was the first discussion point. Yeah.
And at some point you became lactose intolerant because of a disease that you got.
Bacteria I got.
Bacteria.
Yeah.
And from there, like, it really picked up, like, in a way that we started to also get to know about milk. So just for our listeners, like, people who anyway don't eat meat or are eating less and less of it, but they claim to be vegetarians, or they see the good part of being vegetarians without knowing the ugly part that comes with dairy, or not wanting to know about it. Like, if you want to say, if you want to tell the dark side of dairy, like in your own words, just summarize it. How would you do that?
You're right about the moment when I got lactose intolerant. I started reading more about it and watching documentaries about it. And for me, it was really an eye-opener that I always thought that milk is good for you, that you need it. But where did it really come from? From cows. But what I didn't know was that cows need to be pregnant before they can give milk. So that is one part of it.
Just like most mammals around.
Same as humans.
Right.
Women, they are producing breast milk when they are pregnant. And the same is with cows. And I think everyone knows where the milk is coming from a cow, or nowadays also from like a goat or a sheep. But we know where the milk is coming from, but we don't know how did it got produced.
Right.
I never thought about it.
The milk that a lot of people put in their cereals in the morning, they buy it just not subconsciously in the supermarket without really knowing the whole story, how it got there in the first place.
And for me, the most shocking was that you're just drinking an other animal breast milk. That is really what it is.
Right.
And
humans are the only ones to do that.
The only ones. Yeah.
Especially the species that continues to do it after the weaning period, the time when children really start to eat like normal food, just adult nutrition that they start to
they
get.
stop with breast milk.
Right.
Yeah. And if you start thinking, maybe it's a really hard entrance directly with the podcast now.
Yeah.
But if you really start thinking that as an adult human, you're drinking an animal's breast milk.
Yeah.
That is just what it is.
Yeah.
And
how normal it has been, how normalized it has been in the society, especially after the campaigns of big dairy companies backed by the government, like drinking a glass of milk a day is really important. We'll come to the health aspects and the environmental aspects as well of that, as like what research shows is exactly the opposite. What they claim, like what they have claimed over the years.
And this is just one part of it, but the other really sad part about it is that those cows, they become pregnant for 9 months. That's the same with humans,
right? And
shortly after the birth, the baby calf is taken away directly. And then it's a whole, we will also have a blog about this where you can read more about the whole process of milk. But to say it a bit shortly is that you have just a mother cow, it's getting a baby, it's taken away directly. And if it is a boy, really short after birth is going to the slaughterhouse because they cannot use it. And then if it's a girl, it's gonna have the same life as the mother. And how is that life looking? Staying inside how do you say stall? Is it also English stall?
Just in the barn. Just staying inside there for.
They're staying inside, and for 5-6 years in a row, they are getting pregnant. Every time the baby's taken away, and after 5, maybe 6 pregnancies, the mother is tired. It's just not possible, not even for a human, to be 6 years in a row pregnant and not be tired. And then also the mother cow is going to the slaughterhouse. There's a bit of the life cycle of a cow, of a dairy cow.
It's really nice that you emphasize on this point, which a lot of people, they look through or they don't want to talk about, they don't want to listen about. And it reminds me of a trip I made to one of the biggest dairy farmers in Europe, in the world even. Like I'll not name it, there are many. And we met the board, the management, as students. We went there, and all the talks were about increasing the output, increasing profits, and because they were facing problems with milk prices going down and how efficient they can become, that they get so much involved in the process that they forget somewhere the humanity side of it. Like they forget that the creatures that we are using to make money to produce milk on such a big scale is first of all really, it's immoral, it's ethically wrong, and then there are also other aspects of it, like with your own health, with environment, and it really like made me feel sad that it all went about money with that big company.
And farmers, they it's the farmers, they are not the bad people, but they got into
they got caught up in the wrong system. If the population, or if there was a campaign for a lot of vegetables, for example, like vegetables are good for you, you should eat them. There were a lot of ads instead of the ads we see with happy cows on our television, or when you're watching a YouTube video and they are promoting like yogurt and all. Instead of that, if they were promoting carrots, then everybody would be growing carrots. That's that's how it goes. So it's a lot of farmers feel attacked when you talk about moving away from dairy without realizing the benefits of it.
Yeah. Did you also know that in Europe there was a moment, I don't know exactly a year, but there was a moment that they say not a year, you go back 20, 30 years in time, that there was a time that milk was not that popular, and farmers, like dairy farmers, they really had a problem to survive. And from that point, they got more benefits from the government.
Yeah, they got subsidies.
But there was also a moment, that same moment, those commercials where you're talking came on TV. Yeah. That they said, oh, it's good for children, you get strong bones. Because that's what I learned as a kid, because it was on TV. And all those marketing was there just to sell more milk.
And unfortunately, like, it cannot be further away from truth. If you look at the research that we'll also talk in a minute about, that brings us to the first. It's nice that we talked a little bit about our feelings in the beginning. That we know how our conversation will flow and the points that we find important to talk about. But that brings me to just going back on the macro level, how many people on earth actually drink milk? Do you have an idea about that?
Yeah, I know that a lot of people are the same as me, lactose intolerant. That's correct. Mostly in the West, in the North, we are drinking a lot of milk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's...
You have for sure some numbers about this.
First, I always want to know your ideas about it, and they are always right. And I always back them up with numbers.
With research you do.
Yeah, there are a lot of studies done or a lot of data gathered around the world about people who can or cannot consume lactose milk. Lactose is kind of a sugar substance. Yeah. That the body has to break down. We are not designed to break it down.
As a baby, we are designed to break it down.
After the weaning period, we it shuts off. But if you see on an average, between 65 to 70% of the world population, they are not designed, or they don't have the mechanism to consume lactose, to break it down. They can get really sick of it. Yeah. And that's a really shocking fact, because in the world, it's for sure in the Western world that's the case, but slowly also in emerging economies, that there's a lot of focus on dairy and monetizing dairy farms and also advertising them and promoting them in a good way to let more and more people drink it, without realizing that most of the people are not designed to consume it in the first place.
Yeah, and you have, I know you have different levels of lactose intolerance.
Yeah.
So some people, they get really sick by even one sip of milk. Yeah. And some people, they are still okay with a little bit of milk. Yeah. For example, for myself, if I get, like in Europe, I think maybe also another country, but in Europe we have a lot of packaged food where they put a little bit of milk in, like milk powders or some things like that. Yeah. And from that, I'm not getting that sick. But if I would drink a whole glass of milk,
that's true for the majority of the world. They cannot stand a glass of milk. Yeah. And you see, like, I have a really interesting map here, which maybe we can also share the link or the map itself with our listeners. It's a world map which shows the worldwide prevalence of lactose intolerance in recent populations, and you can see that it's only a really small percentage that has like between 0 to 15% lactose intolerance, and that's just Western and Northern Europe. It's just Northern Europe.
North, like Scandinavia, Netherlands, Belgium.
Yeah, also part of Netherlands. Like if you go south, like that's already getting to 30%. Yeah. And if you look at like the majority of the world, where the majority of the world population is living, whole of Asia, including South Asia, China, India, Indonesia, that area, Thailand, South America, whole of Africa.
Yeah.
That is there between 60 to 100% of the population is lactose intolerant.
Yeah, it's so much.
Yeah. In China, even between 80 to 100% people, they have problems when they consume lactose.
Yeah.
And that's kind of really shocking the first time I knew it. I know this fact for a long time, but I know for a lot of people it's the first time that they hear about it.
Yeah, if you really see the number, I was the most surprised by it that only in the north of Europe, it's 0 to 15%.
Yeah.
And the rest is already getting fast a lot more. Because do you know how much of the world population is lactose intolerant?
The amount.
Yeah, how much percent?
Yeah, it's 70% of say 8 billion.
Wow.
So that's.
And most of it then in the south.
In the southern hemisphere, or not always, because you have also China, India, whole of Africa.
Yeah.
That is
South
majority
America
of
also.
the world population.
Yeah. But I'm quite surprised by India, because I always have the feeling that, because I traveled 2 times to India for quite a long time, and I always seen that milk is really important. In certain societies and cultures, for sure. A lot of people don't have the money to buy milk. A lot of people get to know very late that they have lactose intolerance. Yeah. But that's normal. We are supposed to be lactose intolerant as human species. But if you see the amount of milk consumed in India per capita, that's one of the lowest in the world. Yeah, because it's all about the big numbers, because India, China, with 1 billion plus people, 1.5 billion each, together almost 3 billion. Yeah. There's a lot of things that can be taken out of context, or not really. It's maybe also what I've seen, because I've seen quite some rituals where milk is important to use.
Right.
And I've seen that on the streets, if they're making chai, there's always milk in there.
Yeah.
So maybe just because those things I've seen, I have the feeling that everyone is drinking milk there. And that's why it's surprising me that 60 to 80% is lactose intolerant.
Yeah. But we also give Indian cooking classes.
Yeah.
And you see, in most of the Indian cuisine, we hardly ever use milk.
No, the only thing that they are using is paneer, it's a kind of cheese, and ghee, it's a kind of butter. Yeah. That are kind of the only 2 things in the Indian kitchen that comes from a milk product.
And both of them are eaten on special occasions in a small part of the population.
And really easy to replace.
Right.
So
that is right.
It's really good that we can replace them easily.
I remember growing up in India, when I was still eating dairy, paneer was always reserved for a special event. When I had my birthday, for example, my mother would make a paneer dish. Yeah. And now you can easily replace it with tofu, with vegan paneer. And the same with ghee. Ghee was used to prepare dishes on special occasions, mostly. Otherwise, it's a lot. It also depends on the region that is there. And I understand, coming from Netherlands, there's more there are differences, but not as big as in India. And there are a lot of misconceptions around the world regarding milk consumption. Even in Netherlands, I think still there are between 0 to 15% of the population that is lactose intolerant, and in Northern Europe, it's only in the last century or so, or 2 maybe, because of the growth of dairy farms in Denmark, Finland, Netherlands, the big dairy farms that people have gotten more tolerant towards lactose. If you go even like 300-400 years back, the prevalence or people with lactose intolerance, the amount was way more than this. I can imagine that. Of course, we don't have data from that time. But yeah, the fact of the matter remains that most mammals normally cease to produce lactose and become lactose intolerant after weaning, except humans who have continued to drink milk after the weaning period, and because of that reason they have become more and more tolerant to lactose. But still, it's less than 30% of the world population.
Yeah, big numbers.
Yeah. So that was like that was the part like where we discussed about how many people drink milk around the world. That's that's really less. So don't believe the commercial that comes next if you watch TV that you should drink milk because it's normal and everyone is doing that, because that's not the case. But if you're drinking milk, it also comes with its consequences. So it has a lot of health consequences.
Then the question comes in my mind, like, why should we move away from milk then? Like, what are those consequences? Yeah,
I think like in our conversation, we have already established it's not natural to drink milk. And if you force your body to do something that is not good for it, you will have problems. Like I faced myself, like I discussed it also in an earlier podcast, that in India there were also these commercials that you should drink a glass of milk a day. And I remember there was a really famous cricketer in India who also was successful captain, who won a couple of World Cups. And I remember he was drinking 1 or 2 liters of milk a day.
Wow, 1 or 2 liters.
Yeah, and he was telling people, or people around him were telling young children, you should also do that if you want to become like him, because he's really strong. Look how much milk he's drinking. And I remember that, and I never felt the urge to follow like the trend at that point.
Luckily.
But still my mother was making sure, because of everything she heard from her friends, from advertisements, that drinking milk, especially for children, is really good. And even after the weaning period, I was drinking 2 glasses of milk a day.
Did you have milk in school?
No, I didn't get milk in school, but I know in government school, I went to a private school. In government schools in India, I think they do, or they have at least midday.
Schools, I know. Also in Europe, in America, they are giving milk for lunch breaks.
And I was always really sick, like during the day, or especially when coming back, like I had a feeling that I have to really go to the toilet, and I really had a lot of stomach problems, like stomach pain and all. And I remember just before high school, towards the end of like finishing my high school, I stopped with drinking milk.
But you still had milk products, but you stopped with just milk.
And I figured out that my problems just went away. And I am not lactose intolerant because I can still drink it. I have problems after that, so I think I still do have some level of lactose intolerant. I think there are a lot of people in the middle who do not qualify scientifically as being lactose intolerant, but they do have problems. And I think most people, they have health consequences of drinking milk that they cannot even think about.
A lot of people, for example, they are getting acne. Do you say it that way, acne?
Yeah, they get really bad skin because of that. Broken bones, the number one cause of it is also, there's a hype that cow's milk has a lot of calcium. And that's not true, because there's a lot of research which shows that animal proteins produces acid when they are broken down. So when you're consuming animal protein, it is producing acids. And calcium, which you also get by drinking animal milk, is an excellent acid neutralizer. So it will break down the acid, and you can already see where it's going, because in order to neutralize and flush out the acids, your body needs calcium, because the amount of acids that the body produces because of milk is way more than the calcium that you get from the milk. So you know what's happening. So the body is taking extra calcium, the reserves out of your body, to neutralize the extra acid in the milk. That means the calcium is being drained out of your body instead of getting calcium. So of course, like, milk has calcium. Milk does have calcium, but it doesn't matter, because of the acids that your body is producing and the calcium needed to break it down. The requirement is even more. So the calcium the milk is having is not enough to replenish that, and it needs your body's. So every time you urinate or get rid of waste, you're actually getting rid of all the calcium in your body if you're drinking a lot of dairy products.
I think for a lot of people this is really eye-opening.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, I also learned the same as you, that it's important to drink milk because it's for strong bones.
Yeah.
But if you really see the research, it's not true.
And it's not something that I make up out of thin air. Like, I think I'll also post the research links, like, on this video. You can go and read for yourself. Like, and this knowledge, like, comes from the documentary I watched by Dr. Michael Klepper. Who has a lot of knowledge about this, and he has also been part of studies who have established this. And so every glass of milk we drink leaches calcium from our bones. That's what exactly the documentary says. I'll have the link also. And medical study after medical study has found that people who consume the most cow's milk have significantly higher fracture rates than those who drink little to no milk. So if you see around the world, in the Western world, people have weaker bones compared to people in Thailand or China, where drinking milk is almost a taboo in society, or it used to be. Even in rural areas, it's not drinking, milk is just not common. And osteoporosis, there is the loss, the weakness of bones, it's also more prevalent in areas who are drinking more milk. Yeah,
and I also read a nice study that Harvard did a research for 12 years, and they looked at 78,000 women. And they saw that the women who were drinking more milk, they were also breaking more bones.
And it's also a little bit of common sense. Like, when you see all this research and you see all these correlations, then I think it's pretty easy to point out what mistakes we are making. And I think we have established, like, in our discussions, for us at least, there are the ethical challenges of drinking milk, like, for raising a cow and killing it and abusing it and exploiting it and raping it for milk. And then it's even doing harm to yourself because of all the problems you get, like with your bones and loss of calcium, instead of calcium that is being promoted on the internet.
And what is really surprising me, that when I felt sick, I was I had a bacteria, and then I became sick, like food poisoning I had. And normal food poisoning is going over in like 3, 4, 5 days. But for me, I kept being sick. So I went now maybe 10, 20 times to the doctor to tell I'm feeling sick. I went to the hospital and told them I'm feeling sick. And I told them that on specific moments I have a lot of pain in my stomach. And they just didn't know. And at one point they said, oh, maybe you should go to a dietitian to see if it's something with your food, because I had problems with my stomach, and so maybe you have to go to a dietitian to see which food you can eat and cannot eat anymore. And she was not liking at all that I was like vegetarian, and that was I considering to go vegan. So even before I knew that I was lactose intolerant, I was already considering to go vegan. And when I had like those talks with my dietitian, at one point I got to know that I may be lactose intolerant. So I stopped drinking and eating milk products. It was quite a big process, because I got to know that they put milk in so many products. But the bad thing is that she started to give me pills, so I could still have those products. And I really felt like, if my body is not accepting this, why should I force my body to keep eating it? So from that moment I knew I have to stop for sure with not only meat, but also with then
and taking advice from doctors and dietitians who lack the proper knowledge, or they have knowledge that is driven by an agenda. Because a lot of doctors around the world, they hardly have ever a lot of knowledge about nutrition, or they are not taught a lot about nutrition during the study.
Because I know maybe it changed nowadays a little bit more, because I know it's starting to find it becomes more important, nutrition also for doctors. But I know one doctor, he told me in his study he had just a few hours of nutrition lessons. Just a few hours. That's nothing. And you can solve so much problems, health problems, with good food. So it's for sure, like it's not the problem of the people. I think people who are listening to this, like they often and who are open to change, they start blaming themselves for it. Of course, you can be the change you want to see in the world. We also changed that way. We started to think all the things that we can do by ourselves. So the first was to educate ourselves in this area, on the health front, ethical front, and the environmental front. These three are the most important for us. And then we slowly took action. Of course, with most of the products in the supermarkets, it's really difficult to find packaged products that don't contain milk powder or milk products, and it is tough in a Western world to realistically to cut down on that, especially when you're so far away from the reality of production. And at this moment, till this point, we only talked about the broken bones. But there are so many more health issues, and we cannot discuss all of them. But maybe you can name a few more.
You have just cow milk contains a lot of fat content. And because of it's too much fat content. I think a glass is maybe having more than 10 grams, around 10 grams.
Just one glass.
It's really high, and because of that, there are problems related to heart. There is really high fat consumption, and because of that, you have higher levels of prostate and breast cancer. Prostate in men, breast cancer in women. And you see the list of people having or women having breast cancer. You see countries like Thailand and China are at the bottom with almost no cases, and you have Netherlands at the top.
Because we are drinking a lot of milk.
And a lot of fat, saturated fat, which is really bad for you. And the second is the sodium intake, because cheese, for example, some people who are who are lactose intolerant, they can eat some forms of cheese, because cheese doesn't have some kinds of cheese doesn't have lactose. But per ounce of cheese is having 400 milligram of sodium. That's a lot of sodium to make you really, really sick. And sodium is needed by a body in really small amounts to function. But most people around the world, especially the ones who are eating milk products, they consume too much of it, which raises their blood pressure.
Yeah.
And blood pressure is a major risk factor for heart disease and stroke. In the documentary by Dr. Michael Klepper, Food That Kills, I saw that I think 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 American is having like heart problems. Every 4 or 5 minutes someone is holding their chest and falling down because they had a heart attack or they had like a stroke. And that is all coming from sodium. And cheese that is processed, like you have feta cheese or all these different kinds, they have more sodium and they are saltier than seawater. Usually humans are getting sodium that they need from salt, and that's why you need salt for your body to function in a good way. Some amounts of sodium is not fine, but once you start exceeding it by hundreds of %, you see the problems coming.
Yeah. So you just named a few now, but there are so many diseases related to milk products. Yeah,
the last one is the antibiotics. Like that's even more dangerous because all these cattle put together are in unnatural circumstances. They have a lot of diseases, and for that they have to give them a lot of injections. And guess what? Like once you're injecting a cow with resistant antibiotic bacteria through the milk, you're also consuming it. And once people are infected by these superbugs, antibiotics, the effectiveness is being decreased, not only in the animals but in people. They are getting more and more resistant to disease, and there are more forms of diseases that they are getting. And a lot of people, I know it as well, I experience it as well, people who are drinking more milk, they are more often than not they are sick than normal people. Like I am hardly ever getting cold or I'm not feeling sick that often compared to myself in the time when I was drinking milk and consuming dairy products.
Yeah, and that is the best to compare, because it's difficult to compare yourself with other people.
Yeah.
But if, for example, for you see that I am less sick now than I was before, then you really know that you're going in a good direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is one more aspect we we talked about. That's the environment.
Yeah. That's something that is really evident by the amount of research again that is available.
Yeah.
Dairy cows produce a lot of waste. Everybody knows that, and greenhouse gases. There's a lot of talk about carbon dioxide emissions, but dairy cows are producing a lot of methane when they are burping or farting, and it's really a lot. And methane is 10 folds more potent than carbon for our soil, for the planet, causing global warming at a really accelerated pace. Just in America, I'll also put this link, it's from a website, milksucks.com. So they are really clear. Name. They are really clear about what they do. So they say in the Central Valley of California, the cows produce as much waste, excrement, as a city of 21 million people. Mm-hmm. And even a smallish farm of 200 cows produces more nitrogen as in the sewage from a community of 5 to 10,000 people. And we don't have any way in the world to treat the waste from cattle. And there's a lot of talk in the world. I remember, coming from India, there's a problem there, of course. We don't have enough toilets for all the people that live there, and it's really a problem that people don't have toilets. But just imagine a cow producing, just 200 cows producing the same amount of waste as 10,000 people. That is
one cow, 10,000 people.
No, 200. So around 50 people, the amount of waste that we will produce is produced by a cow.
Okay, one more time. So it's also clear for me because I also didn't know this. So 50 people
generate the same amount of waste as a cow.
One cow.
And cows, they don't have a system to treat. They don't have a system to treat this waste. And this waste, guess where it's going? Is destroying biodiversity. It's creating dead zones, and it's flowing untreated into our rivers. It's going into our lakes. It's going into the oceans. All this and creating dead zones in the oceans.
Yeah, so we just talk about milk, and you see how many things are related to milk, how many problems, not only for the animals, not only for your own health, but also for the whole earth.
Yeah, just to put in perspective, an average dairy cow produces around 120 pounds of waste a day. 120 pounds of waste a day. An average human, I would say, is weighing maybe 180 pounds, not even 200 pounds. And that much waste is half a human's size is being produced by a cow, and without any toilets, sewers or treatment plants.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, I think we talked quite a lot about all those things, like why milk is not good, but maybe there are people listening now and they are thinking, nice all the information, but how can I change? What can I do?
It gets us really riled up, like all these problems, because in our head, and I can also imagine a lot of people who are listening who have made the step or who have already transitioned from dairy.
Or maybe who are busy with it.
Right, there is also a lot of anger inside them when they get to know about this data and they see what they're doing to the planet, what they're doing to the health of themselves and their loved ones. And also the ethics of it, like what we make a dairy cow go through. And there, in the world there are almost 300 million dairy cows.
It's way too much.
Yeah, you can imagine at what level we are causing all this damage. And of course, like then we want to also mention some things that that really helped us, like transition. And maybe you want to name like some alternatives of cow's milk and how they're better than dairy.
Yes, especially in the time we're living now, there are so many other things, like other different kind of milk. And just to name a few, if you want to replace the drinking milk with something else, you're having almond milk, you're having oat milk, you're having hazelnut milk, cashew milk, soya milk. They even make out of peas. They're making milk. For sure, I even forget a few, but I already named 6 in like a few seconds. And there are so many options.
Let's just take
coconut milk.
Let's just take one of the most famous alternatives like soya milk and compare it one-on-one to cow's milk, and then you'll realize like how much better it is to drink soya milk than cow milk. Of course, a lot of people have their reservations also with soya because they have like a soy allergy. And some people also think like the ways of producing soya is unethical.
And I want to say something about that because a lot of people, they have the thinking that all the soya that comes up now, it's destroying the Amazon. And that is kind of what people want you to believe. But if you're really gonna look into studies, you can see that only around 1% of all the soya what is there is for humans. The rest of the soya is made to feed animals.
Yeah, we discussed it also in an earlier podcast. I think I said 75% of the land on Earth is being used for growing and animals and to support the dairy and meat industry.
Yeah.
And we just have then 25% left for the rest. So if you free up the 75, you have so much more space. We can feed double the world population today if we change.
And people who want to save the Amazon, the best you can do is just stop eating/drinking animal products.
Yeah. And on the health front, like soya milk is also just like cow milk, like cows are receiving antibiotics, and through that you get your B12, which is a big concern among people. Yeah. They say, if you're moving away from dairy, where do I get my B12 from? Soy milk is also fortified with all kinds of vitamins. Yeah. There is B12, there is enough D in there is vitamin A, and there is calcium, which is not draining out the calcium out of your body, out of your bones. Yeah. Because it is not acidic in nature like cow milk is. It contains as much protein as cow milk, same amount. It contains almost no fat. It contains way less fat than cow milk. Yeah. And it's way less in calories as well. So it has very less saturated fat, less in calories, same amount of protein. It has B12, D, calcium, also with the same amounts. I think it's a no-brainer to make the move, because you are getting rid of so many bad things that you consume when you consume dairy products.
Yeah, and if you cannot drink soya, then still there are so many other options to drink replacement, to replace animal milk. Yeah. But that is only about milk. Nowadays you have so many replacements for everything. Yeah. We don't always agree to everything, because for our own health we still find it good to eat it. Yeah. But you're having now ice creams that are vegan. Yeah. You're having yogurts that are vegan.
Let's talk about cheese for our Dutch listeners.
Like in Netherlands we really love cheese. I was loving cheese a lot.
You can make it yourself. You can blend cashews with nutritional yeast and you have cheese. You have all these vegan alternative cheese which are every day getting closer and closer to the real taste.
Yeah, and they are not healthy. Yeah. So for the health aspect we say don't eat them. Yeah. But sometimes for us we also like to make a dish and replace an animal product.
Yeah. And how many times, like with yogurt for example, have we had a different kind of like coconut based, oat based, soya based yogurt that almost tastes the same as cow animal based yogurt.
I remember once we went to a bed and breakfast, and she said to us, I have plant-based milk for you. Yeah. And we got the next morning, we got the milk, and we took a sip, and we were thinking, what milk is this? Because she had a plan to give us plant-based milk, right?
And we are not used to drinking milk, and this, because soya milk, let's be honest, it has this unique taste, and you will recognize that. Yeah. But once you're drinking oat milk and you're not used to drinking animal milk for a long time, it can be a bit tricky for your mind. Like, am I making a mistake? But it was really oat milk. Otherwise, you would have got really sick of it.
Yeah, and I didn't got sick, so I knew it was good.
But, it's just a myth. Like people say, if we move away from milk, that is cow's milk, we cannot have cheese anymore, we cannot have yogurt, we cannot have ice cream. That's not true. There's non-dairy ice cream, non-dairy of everything, and you can make it yourself. For your convenience, you can go and buy it at a store as well. Nowadays, it's just exploding, that market. So there's enough alternatives. So the thing is, you just have to be open enough to make the change, to recognize the problems with animal-based milk, with dairy, and move on from it.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to end the conversation. I think there is so much more to talk about milk, because it has so many aspects that is important to tell. I think we discussed the most important parts, but it's also possible we forgot a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah.
If you want to know more about veganism, about milk, also check out our website. We write quite some blogs over there. And if we mention things in this podcast and you want to know more about it, with the podcast we also put a blog online every week. And there you can also find the links to things we discussed today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for listening to this another episode of the heygroentje podcast. I think I hope you liked our conversation and you got enough reasons on why it's time to move on from milk.
Yeah.
We'll see you in another episode of the heygroentje podcast with another topic, another day. Have a nice day and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.